countries. But how can we adopt a currency or adopt a form of trade that's outside the control of whatever we call the Davos Forum or the WEF and all the oligarchs and the Western influenced mentalities? Because they do not have our best interests at heart, and that's the main gist of this video, if you're going to take anything. And so why I think it's important is that we should take a moment and evaluate yourself and your life and see whether it is our interests have been looked after by the all the global institutions in the world. And I'll just give you my own honest opinion: they have not. And this is in the world over, all the capital cities. Who owns the banks? Who owns the prime land? And here I want to give you an example of even South Africa. Most of the people who own the land is not the majority, even though it should. The largest value of assets should serve the majority in the world. The purpose why I'm saying this is that we should be really, really quick to arrest some of these things, in the roots. We should be quick as well to join and form our own versions of, an Afrocentric manner of cooperation in terms of property. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the Federal Reserve in the United States will, just print at the whim of the government of the day, and our currencies will be the ones that are bankrolling, the deficits. Because what happens is that the governments of these countries, for instance, the United States of America, they will be the ones who are underwriting the debt of some of these industries, for instance, something like Hollywood. Because if you ask me about somebody who's in China, how, some of the Chinese governments and the officials, they don't really have a way of valuing, the abstract nature of the assets or the output that comes out of Hollywood. And we always hear, yes, these athletes are worth XYZ sum of money, but nobody is really saying how did this calculation come about. Some of these questions are very difficult to answer, and it's only the people who come up with the numbers know what the factors of the calculations are that they've used. Anyway, so as of today, we're currently witnessing the demise of Hollywood, and nobody's going to the cinemas, nobody's going to IMAX. And the reason that this happened is that obviously there's the events of 2020, but even after that, we have the interest rates that had been, taken down to zero and have now been raised, and they were raised so rapidly. And this caused, the crashes of some of the banks that I talked about before. But there's also the aftermath of this happening now to companies that are in China. And for instance, we heard of the company called Evergrande. And if you don't know about it, it's one of the biggest real estate developers in China. And many people were saying that this company would be going bankrupt because they build more than, the capacity. However, I think that these speculations are just part of the ongoing economic war that's happening between the United States of America and China. But on the other hand, the reason why I'm saying this is that a few banks last year, aside from the ones that I mentioned, also went bankrupt or were at the verge of bankruptcy. And we saw that the bank called Credit Suisse was bought by the Royal Bank of Scotland when it went bankrupt. And last year, one of these, was Airbnb. There's a few other companies, for instance, WeWork, which has also been on the decline for a few number of years. And we also saw Meta shares, which is originally called Facebook, dropping drastically last year. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because nobody has actually got, everything or has got a clear picture of what exactly is going to happen this year. So there's a few, wild cards that are in the bubbling cauldron of what the events of this year are going to be. And so, but aside from that, when I started saying that Hollywood has gone also to a drastic decline, the reason why I was saying this is because most people are nowadays just on YouTube and Netflix, and the attention span of people has gone drastically down. Everybody has gone into the wokeism, and everybody's either at the gym or working or doing productive things, and that's not what the rich really want. However, we as brown-skinned people are the target because we are the ones who are indirectly writing off the debts that are being, indirectly written off by the United States government. They're the ones who write off Hollywood's debts, especially when we're talking about D-grade, B-grade, C-grade films that don't make the mainstream, or they don't make however much money. These film companies, they shut down. They just registered the bankruptcy, but because they had spent time creating these movies or films that they make, that the debts are written off and they still get the money indirectly, or they'll have gotten loans and they just become bankrupt and form new companies with new partners. And so when a country like the United States of America has $24 trillion, maybe it's close to $30 trillion now in debt, how are we as our own countries, we should just take time and think about it. How are we going to equate that in terms of the scale that we were talking about, where gold used to be exchanged for the United States dollar? And so the purpose, of this video is to tell you, move to the barter system, ditch your local currencies, because because everybody is still holding on to their dollars. And one thing I want to say is that our governments don't think the same way as Western governments thinking. They don't hold cryptocurrency in such numbers as the first world countries. They don't hold shares to companies such as Nvidia, or shares that would likely rise to such a high level over a short time. And because our central banks don't work in that way, we keep on holding the dollar while it's on the decline. And by the time we're trading the dollar for our currencies, which are useless to the West, then we still get the losing or the sharper and shorter end of the stick. But yeah, aside from that, there's a few other topics I want to talk about. I'm talking about big data and how they collaborate, and how the West and the oligarchs control this, and how this is affecting the modern form of production of entertainment, which now YouTube has taken over from Hollywood. The rich people invest in that, and the open/free internet theory that I talked about has now been replaced by the dead internet theory, which necessarily means that there's an agenda to waste the time of people, and waste the time of people, especially who are brown skinned. And because have always been on a losing trajectory in terms of our history for the past few decades, if not centuries, we have got more work to do than other ethnicity. And so I think we should be very fast to realize that money doesn't sleep, and every time we're on social media, we should watch out for jonesing, the make believe and the lies that they have filled the internet with. Because it's so difficult to find anything of value on the internet anymore. The money that the rich have, it doesn't sleep. So they invest in things like bots and robots that are constantly filling the internet with useless material, useless especially for our time. And because time is money, our time is one of the biggest targets that the rich are investing to deplete and to get us to not make the most out of. Because there's the theory that I call the dump site theory, and the doom/death scrolling that keeps on happening all the time. And a lot of times you'll find yourself doing it inadvertently. But we should be quick to arrest this in its tracks and to not lose our time, because as the saying goes, you mind the minutes and the hours take care of themselves. So yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it there, and from there we're going to see what we're going to work on in next videos. But be careful, and remember to distinguish for yourself the reality from what they want you to believe.